Wing Women Weekend Nashville! Woohoo! Our next Wing Women Weekend takes place in Nashville, Tennessee, January 17th to 20th, 2025. Are you a woman in the LGBTQIA+ community who is looking to make friends, relax, unwind, and have fun? Do you have a burning desire to be a part of the queer community, but you're too shy to go out on your own? If so, then this event is for you. Join your Wing Women hosts, Anne-Marie Zanzal and Tonda McKay, for some socializing, Southern barbecue, dancing at the Lipstick Lounge, one of America's last remaining lesbian bars, and much more. This is the perfect opportunity to step out of your comfort zone and make new queer friends, aka your wingman. Spaces are limited. Don't delay. Reserve your spot today. For more information and to sign up, visit www.wingwomenweekend.com. That's wingwomenweekend.com. Hey queer friends, are you ready to be inspired? Welcome to Season 5 of Coming Out and Beyond, a podcast that shares stories from the LGBTQIA+ community. Here's your host, Anne-Marie Zanzal.
Hi, this is your favorite coaches from Lotus Group Coaching. This is Anne-Marie and...
Hi, I'm Barb Rowlandson.
So Barb and I are the coaches from Anne-Marie Zanzal Coaching, and we have a lot of things available for the later in life community and also just the LGBTQIA women community. And by women, we mean cis, trans, and non-binary folks. And we are going to talk about one of the hardest subjects for queer people, and that's the holidays. Mm-hmm. So, Barb, why are the holidays so queer for us? I mean, so queer.
Well, every holiday I celebrate is queer, Anne-Marie. Yours too, by the way.
Yes. Why are the holidays so hard for the queer community?
Oh, wow. Well, we have a buffet of reasons why it can be really challenging. And I like to use the word challenging instead of hard. A challenge is something that we can overcome. Hard is just hard. Mm-hmm. But our community faces a lot of challenges when it comes to family connections, community connections, connections in within our faith communities as well, and experiencing rejection. So that is a huge reason why, we can feel, especially at the holidays when there's sort of this expectation of connection with the mm-hmm. people who are supposed to love us. And if that doesn't happen, watching every television program, every movie, every commercial that talks about, the spirit of Christmas and togetherness and
belonging and all.
Yeah. And then it's a little bit like putting salt in the wound if we don't have a place to go where we are accepted as who we are. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I think one of the things is that people don't really realize about something called minority stress in the queer community. And so we're going to dive into that a little bit today. And I also want to encourage you, if you are listening to this on the podcast, did you know that we upload all the videos we make up to YouTube? So we actually have, believe it or not, a little presentation that I actually did for a corporate event. But I'm going to share the part that I did with you all today as we talk about managing minority stress, why the holidays are hard for queer folks. And you can go over to my YouTube channel and see the presentation. And it's at Anne-Marie Zanzal Coaching or Anne-Marie Zanzal. I can't exactly remember what it is named on YouTube, but I think it's just Anne-Marie Zanzal. Mm-hmm. So first question, how do you define the holiday season? And I'm going to actually just answer this question in the sense that the holiday season can really depend on, when do you start? Now, Barb, you're a Canadian, mm-hmm. and I know Thanksgiving is different than in the United States. Does your holiday season start in October?
So Canadian Thanksgiving is in October. Why? Because it's a celebration of the harvest. And the only thing we're harvesting in November is snowballs. So, so, so yes, I think it's fair to say that our holidays, especially like our Thanksgiving and our Christmas, there's a little more separation and a little more space. So we have a holiday and then we kind of go back to life as normal. And then we launch into our December holiday season. So we get a little more reprieve than our neighbors down to the south. You can have it all smushed in
Yeah,
together.
we're all smushed together so for me, it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then 3 days later is my wife's birthday.
Oh, wow.
And then 5 weeks later is my birthday. So everything comes from November to February in my family. But, holiday seasons. So, for example, my daughter is married to an Indian man, and they celebrated Diwali at the beginning of November. So their holiday season is long. And also, holiday seasons can be, if you have a family that has birthdays or anniversaries all clustered together, all of a sudden you're seeing your family 6 times in 6 weeks, and it feels like a lot. And so one of the reasons we want to mention is this information we're giving to you is good, whether it's the holiday season, however you define it, or if it's like a birthday season for you. So we're going to talk about minority stress and what is minority stress. So, minority stress is a chronic stress that we're not really sometimes we're not aware of, but it's experienced by individuals who belong to marginalized or stigmatized groups. The stress arises from the social, structural, and interpersonal challenges associated with their minority status. Minority stress is not just about individual experiences, but it's influenced by societal norms. So a lot of times, this is the gift of coming out later in life that Barb and I have both experienced, is that we understand what it's like to live without minority stress, because both Barb and I are white women. We're both married to men. We both experience compulsory heterosexuality, but we also experience the privilege of being white, the privilege of being married to men, the privilege of having good education, all of those privileges that we had. So, as people who've experienced privilege, we're also able to see minority stress much better. So what are some of the stresses that we receive as members of the queer community? So the first one are external stressors. And what are those, Barb?
So external stressors would be, very overt examples of discrimination, of prejudice, of violence. That would mean people who are not shy about expressing how they feel about you and your sexual orientation or your self-expression. And this is where, we can be very much put on our guard. If we know, for example, we're going to be around a family member around the holidays who, is very anti-LGBTQIA. So we have to sort of mentally prepare ourselves for the idea that I'm going to have to be on the defensive when I go visit this household and see this family member, because I know I'm probably going to encounter some unflattering remarks, things that are intended to shame me, things that are meant to diminish me. So that would be an example of how we could experience that over the holidays.
Yes. And then there's also the internal pressures, because if we're still dealing with our internalized homophobia, and, it's such a, it's sort of, internalized homophobia feels like such a yucky word, right? It just feels yucky. But I would like to say, maybe we can change it to compulsory heterosexuality. So, but in this case, internalized homophobia is about like the beliefs you have about yourself for being gay. So if you're still struggling with being embarrassed that you're gay, being ashamed that you're trans, any of those things, it makes the holidays much harder because remember, guilt is I've done something wrong, while shame is there's something wrong with me. So if we're still feeling shame around our queer identity, then the holidays are going to be more different. I mean, more difficult. How about when you haven't told anybody? So what's that? What's that called?
Well, I think did you ever see Hannah Gadsby's bit about I quite forgot to come out to grandma?
Yes. Ah.
There may be people within our family that we haven't yet come out to because we perceive that as being difficult, or grandma's 85 and I don't want to send her into a heart attack, or mom's upset because I'm thinking about coming out to grandma. So, if we haven't come out to everybody within our family, there's this need to okay, how am I going to deal with questions about my life, personal questions from people who actually do care about me within my family? How am I going to deal with those questions when they start probing me? So how are things? Are you seeing anybody? Are you still living with your roommate?
Or you're seeing somebody and you haven't really talked to your family about coming out or anything, and so you're code switching. So, you may be dating Barbara, but you're calling them Ben the entire time. And you just, I mean, just think about how on guard you are if you have to constantly worry about talking about somebody as if they're somebody else. So that is a stressor during the holiday, a minority stressor. There's also microaggressions. I'm going to share one that I experienced yesterday. I went to get my eyebrows waxed, and the girl is very lovely, and we had, quite progressive and everything like that. And so we were talking about the holidays, and she was talking to me about what I was doing, and at we shared all that, and then she goes, "Oh, is your wife going to join you?" In a million years, no one would have ever asked me if my ex-husband was going to come to our holiday celebration with my family, with the family. Never. And, I know the person didn't mean anything by it. I mean, they were just, making conversation. But that is a microaggression because if you're gay, you've probably always experienced, if you've been gay and been out since you were in your teens, you probably have always experienced that. So you think it's normal. But actually, no, it's a microaggression because they would never ask me that if I was married to a man. They would never say, "Oh, is your husband coming with you to a family holiday celebration?" Another thing that I experienced last week, I'm in, I go to water aerobics. I love it. I'm old. And I was talking to one of the women there, that's one of the instructors, and saying that I had been up for a position at the Y for the chaplain of Nashville's Y. And I was like, yeah, but I don't think I got it because I don't think they wanted anybody who was married to a woman to be their head chaplain at, especially in the South and the belt buckle of the South. And she said to me, "Well, that's why." She goes, "You don't throw it in my face like other gays do." I'm like, what? I just went there and I just, you do the nod and the smile. But, those things bother me. And, a couple of days later, I still think about things that people have said. So even though you sort of we let microaggressions sort of roll off of us, they ping. You know what I mean? It's like death by 1,000 cuts.
For sure.
Yeah.
Especially too if sometimes we're meant to absorb these microaggressions as humor and jokes. I've experienced that too, where somebody close to you might make a joke about your sexual orientation. I know I had somebody close to me who very jokingly would call me a pervert. And I was expressed a attraction to somebody I saw on TV or whatever. "Ah, you perv." And it's meant sort of tongue in cheek, but that would never be a joke that you would say to a straight person in your life.
Right.
It's just because the people that I choose to love and be in intimate relationships with are the same sex as I am. So this is where this gets this sort of superficial label of pervert, when in fact, if it was a guy I was making an observation about, they would probably join in.
Correct. And that thing is, and there's also things about like jokes like that. It's like, I could say that to Barb because I am a pervert like her.
Exactly.
I am in the same community as her. I have the same experiences. So something for somebody who is LGBTQ that's appropriate to say may not be appropriate for you to say if you're straight. So, that perv joke, it's fine. Maybe it's not fine because queer people are not perverts and it's just wrong. I'm not going to try to defend it or anything like that, but that's just wrong. You shouldn't say that to somebody if you're outside the community. And you also have to be really careful about it when you're inside the community, because if you're inside the community and somebody has been really hurt by somebody calling them a word like pervert, then they're not going to take it in a way that is they're not going to take it as a just kidding thing. It may really hurt somebody.
For sure.
So as Barb said, the holidays is that time of joyful celebration. And if you are on our YouTube right now, you can see that we are having, those pictures of people enjoying the holidays. But some of the things that go home is, you go home and you are getting in arguments with people that you love, and they may not be accepting of your queer identity. So how do you handle that? Like, how would you advise people, Barb, if they're going home and, they have dad, like in this video here, dad is giving, it looks like the younger child a really hard time because of their identity. What do we do with that?
Well, there's a reason why we serve wine at the holidays. I'm kidding. So, yes, but sure. I think a lot of us do lean into some of these unhealthy coping mechanisms to be able to just get through this dinner or just get through this weekend. But what are some healthy ways that we can cope with some confrontations or comments or microaggressions, as you say? Well, first things first, maybe we could start off before we even enter into this holiday space, having a conversation with people before we even arrive to define expectations.
I agree with you 100%.
I think that if we're going to mom and dad's house, that maybe we give mom and dad a phone call before we show up to say, hey, I'm really looking forward to spending some time with you, but I just got to let you know, I can't discuss politics with you. Let's leave it out. Or I can't discuss my sexuality with you if you're not going to be accepting. Here's what I expect. I want you to treat me with respect. And just so there's a clear understanding, they might push back, and it's up to you to hold your boundary, right? If you feel they are not going to hold a boundary with you, well, you have a choice. You can either go and be prepared for a confrontation, say, hey, remember, we weren't going to talk about that. Or you can choose not to go, and that sends a message as well. But here we end up into, why do we have such a hard time at the holidays? Because if we can't be around the people who are supposed to love us and accept us for who we are, and choosing not to spend time with them, then we end up alone. And it's a sad thing to be alone at the holidays, right? But these are the choices that we have.
Okay. So I would like to push back about that, because also I think it's great advice if you have mature family. You can talk to about that. And even if you're going to get a little pushback, that's fine. But if you have a family that you really can't talk to about that, you can't say things like that to them, because it will end up being World War III, or they'll be completely ignored because your family of origin doesn't have really good boundaries. So you may say what you want, but they go plowing right through them.
Right.
I have a couple of other suggestions. I think the first thing is, do you have an ally in your family?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have somebody in your family that's on your team, can you call them ahead of time and say, hey, can you be there when I go home to mom and dad's? Because I just need somebody for emotional support. And they may be able to jump in emotionally with you, like you go in the kitchen and you both roll your eyes together, or they may be able to verbally support you. So, for example, sometimes there are some family members that are much more willing to be vocal about how they feel about things. And so if you have an ally, being able to say, that ally may say, hey, let's not, Barb doesn't want to talk about this. Let's not talk about this right now. And just be your wing woman or wingman, as the case may be. And then I think there's another suggestion. So if all of that is out and you're still wanting to go home, have your posse ready on your chat. Have a text chat, have a WhatsApp chat, have fun with it. Get 4, 5, 6 friends together, several people that you know, and say, hey, I'm going home to my family. It's sort of challenging there. Can I text you if things are going bad? And so then you have an opportunity to vent and have people saying, oh, I'm so sorry, or, laughing, or maybe sending something funny that's happened. So you have your cheering squad. And so that's another way to be able to get through the holiday season.
Sure.
And then, there's also the choice of, do I need to be with my biological family? And so if your family is going to cause you emotional stress, if you're going to go there leaving so much worse about feeling so much worse about yourself than you did, if they diminish your new reality, if they dead name you and you're trans, if they do not use the correct pronouns, even though you've repeatedly asked them to, if they don't recognize your identity as a member of the LGBTQ family, then there's a question of, should I go home? And I'm a big believer in not putting myself in toxic situations anymore. I even sometimes with my own children, I have done that, because my mental health, my ability to feel good about myself and who I am as a human, is not predicated on my relationship with my family of origin or my family that I created. So I am really thoughtful before putting myself into situations that are hard. And so Barb and I right now give you permission that if going home is going to make you feel worse than you do at this moment, then don't go home.
I would add on to that and say, give yourself permission if you do decide to go and it gets uncomfortable, it gets ugly, give yourself permission to leave.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I know it's Christmas Day, but gotta go.
Yeah. And also, too, there is an option of being with chosen family. So let me tell you, if you are going to not go to a family gathering free, like you're going to plan, okay, I just can't do it this year, it's too much. Please make sure you plan something else, because there is nothing worse than sitting home alone on the holidays and crying with nothing on the agenda. So I know I've done that. So first of all, you can plan things with other people. You can make new traditions on a holiday. You can volunteer. Actually, volunteering is really good because it actually produces a feel-good hormone when we help other people. So if you have no plans and nowhere to go, maybe helping some other people during the holiday season will help you feel better about yourself. Also, too, some other tips that you can do is, saying, oh my God, all my friends are gone. Everybody's gone home. I'm going to be alone. Well, if the option does come down to just being alone, then take care of yourself that day.
For sure.
Give yourself a spa day. If a restaurant's open that you love, go treat yourself to the most magnificent meal with several glasses of wine if you drink. you know, you, and if you want to just stay home, that's spa day, like buying special masks or just doing something to take care of yourself, because it's okay to be alone and it's okay to cry and have shedding some tears during this time. Any kind of reaction to grief and sadness is okay. But we also need to be a little proactive and take care of ourselves. If you're someone who likes movies, plan a movie fest, 3 or 4 movies that you love. If you're a reader and you've been dying to read this new book, Christmas Eve, go get that book and spend that day reading. So there are ways you can not go to your family's house, not celebrate Christmas in the traditional way or celebrate the holidays in the traditional way, that still make you still will be able to get through the holidays and be okay.
Yeah, and if you celebrate a particular holiday, like say you celebrate Christmas, and you're going to be alone, maybe locate some of your friends who don't celebrate Christmas, who let's spend that time connecting with you. And I'll never forget my oldest daughter. One Christmas day, she kind of bailed on us on Christmas Day and it was fine. We had spent lots of time together, but she's like, you know what? My friend David is all alone right now. David is Jewish. Could really use a friend. And they ended up going to the only restaurant that was open that day, a Chinese food buffet, and having like a feast of their own, and ended up reconnecting with a friend that was really valuable to time to her. They got food poisoning that day, so that's the only friend.
That's when it becomes a stupid story about the time. You know what I mean? So, and then there's also some things that people don't recognize, and I just mentioned it, is that sometimes you may be grieving. And this is especially true if you're somebody who's coming out later in life and you're starting the divorce process. So grief is our emotional, physical, intellectual, and spiritual response to loss. It is something that naturally occurs in our human condition. And so you may be grieving. And so being able to recognize yourself as grieving and being able to recognize the feelings that you may be having, because grief just doesn't include feelings of sad. It includes, you can be angry, you can be depressed, you can be a little bit shocked. So for example, if you're somebody who's been married for 25 years to the same man, and all of a sudden you are doing new traditions this year, and, this all came about within the last 6 months, you're in shock. And Barb and I in Lotus Group Coaching, we really, really believe and lean into self-kindness. So it is okay that if you can't get together with your family, it is okay that you stay home that day. If navigating and another piece of advice is, if you are going through a divorce with your spouse, so many people tie themselves up into knots trying to make everything the same for the kids. And why does that not work, Barb?
Because it isn't the same. It's never
Right.
going to be the same.
It's never going to be. I know that's a hard thing to hear, but it's not going to be the same. So go ahead. I interrupted you.
So it's not going to be the same. You know why? Because you're creating something better for you. And it can feel very awkward when we do something different for the first time. It's actually, there's like a cognitive load to that, where, we've done things the same thing for years and years and years and years and years, and now we're switching streams. That is mentally a challenging thing to do. The good news is that A, you can get used to this change, and B, you have agency now. If this is your first Christmas or your first holiday, excuse me, I keep saying Christmas. Not everybody celebrates Christmas.
Yes,
I say that because I do, but
but we also recognize, and Barb's right, we understand there's all kinds of holidays, and please excuse our verbal slip-ups.
But if this is your first holiday on your own, you have the agency to be able to craft it
however you want.
For you want. And you can, for those who are going to celebrate with you, like Anne-Marie, I beg your pardon, because you've heard me tell this story a million times about my first Christmas that I celebrated with my children and struggled with that feeling of it not being the same. But I not only gave myself the agency to make changes, but I also extended that to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do it different this year. Well, what do you want to do? So now, 7 years later, we have a tradition of putting a unicorn at the top of the tree. And we change the time that we open gifts and we play games and we do things differently because it is different. And together we crafted something that was joyful and meaningful to us that became our new tradition.
Right. Right. And, it's something like the thing is about holidays when things are new is that Barb is exactly right. It does feel really uncomfortable and weird at first. But I promise you, within a couple of years, it'll be your new normal.
Totally.
And so a lot of times, the grief around a holiday, when things are in great flux and tradition, it is only a moment of time. And it may be a placeholder in your life for a couple of years where things are in transition, but eventually things will go into what is your new normal, and you'll feel comfort again. And another thing too, sometimes people really struggle with, especially if you're queer and you're not out yet and you've had a breakup. So this is another thing called disenfranchised grief. It is a grief in which people do not recognize or know about your grief. And so we really encourage you to take special care about yourself when you're going through a disenfranchised grief. It's something you may not be able to talk about to anybody. Where I would say risk telling somebody what's going on, the safest person you know, because they may be able to be supportive of you. But also, too, that spa day, that movie night, if you're going through a breakup or something that you really can't share with your family yet, and you are deeply grieving, maybe having a special day planned for yourself so that you don't have to, it is really hard to be grieving and sad and to be in a room full of people that are laughing and chatting.
For
and
sure.
so thinking about what can I do to make sure that I feel safe and I feel cared for this holiday. And also too, there's something that we don't talk about in the queer community is the financial part of the holidays. That causes a lot of stress for people.
Totally.
I have some really good factoids on the slides in the YouTube channel about how queer people make less money than non-queer queer workers. It is documented. And also too, for example, if you are somebody who is transgender, you also make a lot less money than people that are not. And so there are some really great statistics in this. But what I want to say is that money is obviously important, but that stress of not having enough money to do your holidays is very, very real and can make everything feel so much more overwhelming. So do you have any tips for people, Barb, that want to celebrate the holidays, but they're looking at their bank account and it's got $22?
Right. Well, I think if we can touch back on something that you mentioned earlier about acts of service, I think that leaning into some community-based acts of service, like volunteering at your local food bank, volunteering at the soup kitchen, maybe donating things like old belongings that you don't need anymore that are still good to the women's shelter, leaning into those acts of service, because what that means is you're living out values, and especially like values is something that's very tied to a lot of holidays. Spirit of generosity, peace, being good to your neighbor, that sort of thing. So if we can sort of strip back the consumerism and get to the core of what you're celebrating and how can I actually do this in a way that is meaningful, that really only costs me my time, or maybe costs me a donation of something that I have that I don't need anymore. That can bring you a sense of meaning and purpose and connectedness. And like you said, when we do these kinds of acts of service, it really helps you to release some like feel good chemicals that will help to lift your mood overall.
Well,
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying that these acts of service can also extend to the people that you love and care about. So it doesn't have to be a thing, right? It could be, I'll mow your lawn every weekend this summer, or I'll,
Or, a lot of times when like parents don't have a lot of money, you can get one gift for your child, and then you can do a fun jar. So you put in little pieces of paper in there that you will say you'll bake cookies when they want them, or you'll take them on a hike, or you'll go out and play basketball in the yard the only thing is you have to follow through.
You have to follow up.
Don't put anything on there that you don't want to do.
It's funny, this reminds me of a time when my kids, my youngest daughter, obviously too little to go out and buy presents, and so she would make something called, she won't mind me using her name, Eleanor bucks. You draw out little Eleanor bucks for coupons, and it's like one of my most treasured gifts ever. Is she made me an Eleanor buck that I could redeem to smite my enemies. Like a reminder of it every Christmas. It's really hilarious.
Can I have an Eleanor buck?
She would smite my enemies too. She's a fierce one, but
So then there's some things that are going on biologically, and this goes across the board, whether you're gay or straight. And that's something called seasonal affective disorder, which is really real for people. That basically means that you're not getting enough light, and so your mood is low. So if you're somebody who struggles with a low mood, this is where it's really important around seasonal affective disorder. This is really important to either buy one of those lights that you can sit on when you're working, if you work from home, or watching TV, or getting outside as much as possible, because you really need to be able to lift your it's a really helpful way to lift your mood, especially if you struggle with SAD. Also, too, if you're somebody who has mental health issues that are medicated, and you're feeling very, very down this season, you may want to talk to your prescribing physician about maybe changing your medication as you go through this time. You do not have to be a hero and a martyr. There is nothing wrong if you have a diagnosed mental health condition. There is nothing wrong with seeking additional help during times of year that are more stressful for you, whether it's the holidays or maybe there's some major upheaval going on in your life. Finding that support. We have to find support in all different ways. And so it's okay to call your doctor and say, I'm struggling. Is there a way can I up my medication by half a pill or whatever, works for you? And make sure you talk to your provider. Don't do this on your own. Make sure you talk to whoever, prescribes your medication for you, and maybe thinking about doing that if this is so overwhelming for you, you're really struggling to get out of bed. And then the last thing that Barb and I want to talk about why it's so hard, especially with the minority status, is religion. The holidays that we're talking about here, all of them are tied to some religious tradition. And, or they've been religiousized. And so a lot of times, if you're somebody who is queer and you no longer believe what your family of origin believes, or you are in the process of what I call deconstructing your faith, which means you're saying to yourself, okay, I don't think I believe in this, or this that I was taught. And how am I going to live? If you're someone who is religious, how am I going to deconstruct or get down to the foundation of what I believe so that I can then go back and build it up into a faith that speaks to me as who I am as a human being. So so if you're feeling anxiety about going home because you are an extremely religious family and they are against queer people or even openly hostile to people, again, it is time to ask yourself that question. Should I go home? Should I go find chosen family? Should I go do something else? Or how are you going to handle it? If they start quoting Bible verses at you and stuff like that, that is the time you can what, Barb?
You can say, thank you very much and it's time for me to go home.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that feels like really big for a lot of people, especially if we live in a very enmeshed family or in a family where there's a lot of dependency issues, codependency issues. But the thing is that you are in the process of creating a life that fits for you. This is just a very small step on a journey. And so starting to set boundaries with people will actually, it may be hard for them to accept them for a while.
Yes.
But it'll make you feel better. And that's important.
Well, just like you're learning to take better care of yourself at this stage, your family or the other people who are important to you are going to have to relearn how to be in relationship with you. And no one's going to swoop in to take care of us here. We are responsible for creating our own best lives and for protecting our joy. Right? That's our responsibility. So, and we teach people how to treat us. So if you're at a time of big transition, like if you're coming out or if you're divorcing, this is a time where you're learning how to craft a life that's best suited for you. And it's also going to be a period of learning for the people around us. And, we can extend these people some grace, right? As they're learning too, because we're learning how to be our new selves. So they're learning to get used to our new selves. It doesn't mean that we have to slam the door and say we'll never be in relationship with these people. But being adults about it, communicating what our needs are, expressing what our boundaries are. These things are really important. They can feel very hard, but I promise you with practice, it's just like we start with the 1 pound weight and then we move up to the 5 pound weight. Next thing you know, we're lifting 50 pounds over our head. So too it is with the people in our lives. Gradual changes.
And so some of the other tips that we want to give you is I'm a big believer in meditation. There are some really amazing apps out there. There is Insight Timer and there's also the Calm app. Either one of those apps, whether it's listening to music, listening to chanting, listening to drums, listening to guided meditations like they have guided meditations on how to set boundaries, how to calm your inner child. You can basically put anything in the search engine and you may be able to find a meditation or something recommended by the app that for you. So for example, if you put in going home for the holidays, there may be a bunch of stuff. So first of all, making sure that you have some resources for yourself. So if you've never tried meditation, I suggest doing 2 minutes. Find 2 minutes of meditation, start small, and also remember that it's really normal to have other thoughts while you're meditating and you're not doing it wrong if that happens. It's actually the beginning of how a practice starts. And the only thing required for meditation is a straight spine. So you can do it sitting up, laying down. You can fall asleep while you're meditating. I fall asleep while I'm meditating. So it is okay. I have a very casual relationship with meditation. Like I'm okay falling asleep during meditation and I'm okay with being comfortable. And so I use it as a tool for myself. Another tools that you can use is gathering with your chosen family, whether it is on the holidays or before the holidays, sort of like fill your tank, put your gas mask on, your air mask on before putting it on anybody else. But these are some of the ways that you can get ready for the holidays. Go to your therapist. If you have a therapist, schedule an appointment or a coach. schedule an appointment before the holidays, schedule one afterwards so you can talk about what happened. Do you have any insights or advice you would like to give, Barb?
Well, earlier you talked about, maybe if you have a diagnosed condition, mental health condition, and changing your medication to help sort of lift the floor for your. That's really excellent advice, and that can help you in the moment to sort of lift you up. But for longer term change in cognitions, longer term healthier changes, so important. I'm a big believer in working with a counselor, a therapist, a coach, to somebody who is objective, but also on your side to help you be able to, first of all, carve a path to where you want to go. And to help identify some maybe ways of being and ways of thinking that haven't always been healthy for you. To maybe unpack some of that internalized homophobia, to maybe unpack some issues around maybe codependency within your family. So that it's by working with somebody else on a consistent basis that you can make the longer term change. And those two things, the medication and the counseling in coordination with each other, really will set you up for much, much more success. And it's different than talking to friends, right? Friends are important.
Correct.
Talking to a BFF or several, they're always going to be on your side, but they're not going to be objective.
No, they're not.
They don't have the same skill set as a coach or counselor or therapist. Right. So I know I'm biased, and when talking to you, I know we're preaching to the choir here about working with coaches and counselors, but I do feel like to really set you up for long-term success, it takes a path of learning and a path of undoing and a path of growing, and having a professional walk side by side with you on that is so valuable.
So if you are somebody who is struggling with this coming out journey, or you have been listening to this show for a while and you're like, I really want to reach out to them, but I'm just not sure, I would really highly encourage you to reach out to Barb or myself. We know Lotus Group Coaching works because I have been with it for, it's going to be 7 years this year, and Barb's been with me 3 or 4 now. And we know it works because we have seen so many women go through our program and are now living their most authentic lives, whether they're partnered or just living into their truth. That doesn't really matter. But what matters is finding community, finding support. The 3 basics of Lotus Group Coaching, our 3 foundations, is that we believe in self-kindness. We teach you how to be nice to yourself because a lot of times we're not very nice to ourselves. We teach you about shared common humanity because the experience, we always think we're alone, right? We think both Barb and I, when we came out way back 8 years ago, we thought we were the only ones. And we didn't realize that there's people out there, and there were people before us too, that have done this work. And we are really excited and really willing to work with people who are in this process of questioning your sexuality, possibly coming out, or maybe navigating divorce. That's our wheelhouse, and that's where we shine. And so we really want to help you shine. So in the show notes, you'll be able to find a link for Lotus Group Coaching. You will also be able just to find my website. I invite you, if you are in the process of learning to date and thinking about dating, to follow Barb on Lavender Dating, on TikTok, on Instagram. Reach out to her through my website, AnneMarieZanzal.com, and she will be able to help you with her dating profile, getting over your fear of dating, how to talk to women online, all those things that are normal questions that people have. And Barb will be having a workshop the last Saturday of January and the first Saturday of February, a workshop that's 2 parts. And we will be getting that information out soon. By the time we have this episode up, information will be up online as well. And there's also another option. I'm having a retreat in Nashville. It is the weekend of January 17th through the 21st, and my wife and I are hosting it, and it is for people who are later in life and want to be with community and in person. And the retreats, I would consider they are the catalyst for change. They are definitely, we should call them catalyst. We call them Wing Women Weekend So you can find all about our Nashville retreat at wingwomenweekend.com. And we would love for you to join us. So there are so many different ways. Wait a minute, too. We also have our course that we've done. It's called Maybe I Am Not Straight. And so that course you can find on my website. And that course is for people just questioning their sexuality and wanting to understand why it's so effing hard to come out later in life. And so we really dive into that in that course. So Barb and I are here for you as your queer coaches, as lesbians who've been there and done it, and we would love to support you.
So yeah, definitely there's a lot of entry points into getting support. And please consider it if you're feeling some trepidation about this, about reaching out for help. If you think that contacting a queer coach means I'm queer too, and you're not quite ready to commit to that identity, just consider it fact-finding. Consider it information gathering. Just because you reach out to one of us doesn't mean definitively that you are gay, lesbian, bisexual, doesn't mean any of those things. The only person who can identify your sexuality is you.
Right. Absolutely. And, it's like with the women we work with who are thinking about divorce. Now, one thing about both Barb and I know divorce, that it's different in every country and every state and province within those countries. And so we cannot give divorce advice. We don't, like the legal part of divorce, we don't give that because we can't. We're not qualified to. So we always tell the women we work with, go out, find a lawyer and talk to the lawyer in your state or province and country. And I say, it's not a betrayal. It is a fact-finding mission. That is one of the biggest mistakes I made with coming out later in life and getting divorced. I didn't talk to a divorce professional beforehand, and I would have saved myself from a lot of mistakes if I had. So if you are looking for support, and we have, as Barb said, so many different entry points of it, we'd love to have you along. You are part of our community, whether we talk to you in person or we never do, because we understand that community is important. And we are so glad that you listen to this podcast. Please like and subscribe and follow all those good things on your podcast platform because it helps other people find it. And so we are wishing you a very happy holiday season.
Absolutely. And take good care of yourself during this time. And if you need support, reach out. Nobody is ever worse off for getting more information. And any time or effort or money that you spend on yourself is well invested. So get the support you need.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
All right.
You've been listening to Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA plus stories with Anne-Marie Zanzal. New episodes of the Coming Out and Beyond podcast drop every other Friday. You can tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at annemariezanzal.com. Be sure to hit subscribe when tuning in so you never miss an episode. And for more resources, articles, videos, and a free downloadable guide for coming out later in life, visit annemariezanzal.com.